यार भी तो है रखता है मारो मत के तो अगर एक मत ना ये रख मारो मत के जब आसे तो तभी से जुलूस 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 मुझे लाता है तो गोल हाथ तक तो नोबत लेना अवश्य नहीं बाला को तारो हिंदी की अवस्था की हिंदी की एक कोई गला को लेना तुम मैं बोलते तो ओ हिंदी इंडिया को आ हिंदी तो है आत्मा रे जरूर है ना मत तो ना पहले पहले ले हिंदी हिंदी करना दावा मार दावा से जो ना कि ये ने का दी ये है आत्मा ये है आत्मा तो दिल्ली दूरी दिल्ली की मार दिले ना दिए आ होते ना तो सब दिल्ली
chat filter
देख ले मानो भाई जो नहीं देख ले আগে তুমি সুন্দর হয়েছে তো বিচেনে একদম সমান হয়ে গেছে আগে তো ফেমা দিল্লি আসিল না এই একদম সমান হয়ে গেছে বিচে নাকি কত ভিতর আপনি এক কোটি টাকা পারেন আগে তো বার দেখে চুরি मेरा छुट्टी का दिन है दो बजे और वो तो बना दे ये लग गया ला गया
আসসালামু আলাইকুম, কেমন আছেন সবাই? অবশ্যই এসএমএস করে জানাবেন কে কোথা থেকে দেখতেছেন।
It's 9:15. How am I already underwater?
I'm in the same boat.
I'm in an actual boat.
I thought Grammarly just fixed.
I hope I'm not the only one who goes through phase where I absolutely suck at hitting goals and being consistent, essentially. I realized that competing in the Olympia and being a bodybuilder, I was going through so many phases where I would get super ramped up in prep, be super consistent on a tight schedule, a tight routine, everything at the same time every day, doing everything I needed. And then I would kind of dip down right after the Olympia. I would kind of fall off. I'd go to the gym when I could find the time, but I didn't really have a routine, so I would often skip days, not feel great, and I was giving myself a break. And when I did that, a lot of other things in my life were kind of falling off. And then it would slowly ramp up in my off season, you know, travel and business and work was kind of crazy, and then it would get super dialed in and locked in again for prep. And I was just realizing that I was going through these phases, and I was so efficient in prep, and then very inefficient other times of the year. So I wanted to take some of the habits and the mindsets and the things that I applied throughout prep that made me efficient and learn how to apply them to like my day-to-day life forever, consistently. So I kind of dove in for the last week or so, just like reflecting and writing down some things that I did. And my goal is to apply them to my life going forward forever and hopefully help you guys too. I'm not going to get into too deeply because I'll be sitting here for an hour and I wrote a fucking lot of shit, but I'm going to just tell you guys something to put down and maybe it'll help you. First thing is a clear goal. Obviously, at the Olympia, you know, there's nothing more clear than a fucking goal. October 14th, 2024, competing at the Olympia in Las Vegas, like, that's the goal. I gotta win the Olympia. But this thing that's always stuck with me, super cheesy, and I'm not gonna get into deep because my mom was the one who taught it to me, and you can find it online, but it's called SMART goals. It stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relatable, and time-based. So specific, you need a very specific goal, not just like, I want to be strong. It's like, how strong do you want to be? At what date do you want to be strong? What lift? Do you want to be explosive strong? Do you want to be like power lifter strong? What are your specific goals? Measurable, obviously be able to measure it. Attainable has to be possible. Relatable has to be authentic to yourself, something you care about. Time-based, there has to be a time based on it. Like I said, I'm not going to get deep into that because you guys can Google that yourself. But the big thing that I wanted to touch on here that I realized I applied into becoming Mr. Olympia and I think really helped me drive my success in my life was instead of having a goal, necessarily like a thing that would end and then like the Olympia would fall off afterwards, it was more of an identity, a sense of self that I was trying to build and become someone who could complete X. So the way I kind of worded it, and I had written this down in one of the monologues I did before a prep series without even realizing that was the way I think, is instead of I want to win the Olympia, it's the goals you could write out to be more efficient. I want to be someone who X. So I want to be someone who trains consistently every single day, hits sets to failure, never skips a meal, never cheats on his diet, gets his sleep and recovery that he needs. All these different things like that. And I thought that was so important. And a huge thing for me within that was it wasn't just the actions and the physical things you did, but your mentality, the way you think, the way you treat people, and all these things. Because you might think of the identity of the champion as someone who is a little bit, edges on the side of arrogant, super cocky, confident, and that's what winners do, because a lot of people we see in the media are like that. But that wasn't relatable or authentic to me. So the self I wanted to portray before I was the champion was the humble, respectful champion who treated everybody the same, whether it was a former Mr. Olympia backstage, a stage marshal, a security guard, whoever it might be. The champion I wanted to be was someone who embodied that respect, because I knew people would be up to me when I became this champion, not only for what I did, but who I was. And I wanted to be someone that my mom and their moms would be proud of if that's how they were acting. So the next thing I kind of dove into here was you have an identity, and then creating a list of things and defining very specifically what those people do. And this comes back to that goal of I want to be someone who X. So I want to be someone who, what does Mr. Lim do? And you write that list down, and you treat people with respect. You're humble. You go to the gym every single day, whether it's to train or to do active recovery, to stretch, to hit abs, to hit your accessory body parts. You never cheat on your diet. And doing these things as much as possible, the more you define these habits and you live these habits, you will naturally become the success that you want to achieve. So instead of chasing after that goal, you become the identity and the person that will naturally attract that goal. And I think the biggest thing that people always come to me and ask me when I'm doing like meet and greets, and they ask me, it's always like, how do I start? What do I do? How do I start? I have all these things, X, Y, and Z, and you can watch a million YouTube videos, read a million books, and sometimes you get like overwhelmed by the amount of steps that are out there. And I mean, nothing matters unless you actually do it. So taking action is the most important and hardest part. I've always had this mindset that you are not what you think. You're not who you think you are. You just simply are what you repeatedly do. So you can think positive things. You can think, this is huge in relationships, like I could tell my wife, I think you're beautiful. I think I love you. I just don't say it. Well, she's not going to know and feel it unless I show her with my actions. And it's the same in anything in life. So taking action is the most crucial point of everything. And I think what people fuck up is they get overwhelmed with too many steps and things to do. So this is going to be the most basic tip, but the most important one, if you take anything away from this, build an identity and start fucking small to build momentum. Those three things are everything when you break that down. So, for example, when I used to be in college, I used to drink 3 times a week, get like blackout drunk, go out with my friends, and I loved it. I loved the social life. I was in college hanging out with people. It was the only time in my life I had to be able to live like that, and I was aware of that. So I didn't want to sacrifice that. So I did that for a period of time, but then I wanted to take bodybuilding more seriously. I was on the edge of going pro, and I knew I had a lot of potential in me, but I knew my lifestyle was holding me back. But I also wasn't ready to sacrifice my social life. So instead of just telling myself, all right, I'm going to stop drinking, stop going out, go to bed at 9 p.m., wake up at 6 a.m., do my cardio, never miss a meal, do all these things, I was like, I'm eating pretty good, still cheating a lot because I like going out with my friends, and I love going out at night, but I'm going to stop drinking. So I still stayed out until 2 a.m. every night, but I made one small change, and that was to stop drinking. And just that alone, waking up not hungover and not wanting to eat bacon, fucking God knows what else for breakfast because you're hungover and tired and lazy, having a bad workout, horrible recovery from the alcohol throwing up your system, I was able to make a decent amount of progress from that alone. And the momentum I built from that one small change encouraged me to want to make more changes. And eventually, I stopped going out completely, started to go to bed early. I started to clean up my diet, and I started to make all these little changes that eventually, that literal year was the year that I turned pro, won 2 pro shows, and made it to the Olympia, just from making these subtle changes. And it was huge. And the one change I made this cascade effect into everything in my life. And I think starting small, in order to build momentum, and being conscious that you are starting small intentionally to build momentum is huge. So the goal when you're starting something, especially if you're fresh, the goal is to be consistent, not perfect. So create an identity, define what that person does, start small, and make your goal to pick something that you can be consistent with rather than perfect. I don't need you to achieve the whole list. Pick one, start with that, and with that momentum, start another one, and another one, and another one. And after a while, once you're embodying these habits, these actions, and these behaviors, without even thinking of your goal anymore, you're going to achieve your goal. As long as you're doing this like well thought out. And the idea with momentum is, I mean, as anything, if you're driving a car and you take your foot off the brake and you roll into a wall, you're going to just fucking tap into the wall, fuck up your car a little bit. If you're driving 150 miles per hour at a brick wall and just fucking fly right through that thing, probably keep going there through at the other side. You might, get a little scratches on your car, but you're still moving. It doesn't stop you because you have so much momentum. And that's the same thing with this. After making those small changes when I was young and building these habits over time, I didn't even feel like it was like I was dieting. I didn't feel like I was eating healthy. I didn't feel like I was training hard. It was just life. So who I was and it was what I did. So when something came in the way, whether I was in prep and it was my lat tear, my hamstring tear, 2018 when I was in the hospital, last year I had a minor hamstring tear I didn't even really talk about. It became the thing where it didn't even have a chance to hold me back because I had so much momentum, I had such an identity attached to the behaviors that I did, that when something came in to stop me, I just kept rolling forward through it after. So a lat tear would be something that would hold me back for a little bit, and I'd be immediately back on my shit, moving forward, getting better and better. And I can't stress that enough, that momentum is like the secret to get through stuff, because when things are so habitual that you don't have to think about them, that when chaos hits in your life, whether it be personal, stressful, mental, emotional, physical, your habits you don't have to think about. They take less energy. So you just keep moving forward, you keep getting better, and it's fucking everything.
পুষ্টি সমৃদ্ধ হরলিক্স যা বাচ্চার মানসিক ও শারীরিক বিকাশে সহায়তা করে, বুদ্ধিতে বৃদ্ধিতে রেডি সব সময়।
ওই ধরনের খনিজ সম্পদ আছে, পেশা বেশি দালানোর জন্য
Event number 7 is the split triplet. We have a pegboard, we have some double unders, and then 2 movements with a dumbbell, 55 pounds for the women, and they have to lift it in a split style. We start with the board ascent. Now both pegs must reach the top, and both pegs must come down, and we already have double from Turi Helgadottir on that pegboard.
Tia Claire Toomey also fell off the pegboard to start the event. The one I'm looking for, Sean, is the bottom right part of the screen, and that is Amanda Barnhart, who wasn't able to climb a single one last year. It looks like she's fixed that hole.
Once again, we appreciate CrossFit providing us with these pictures from their world feeds. The single pegboard ascent is done, and now it's on to the 100 double unders. Catherine Davis-Daughter was first done with that pegboard. So some of the athletes in this heat don't have a whole lot of experience with this thing. If this is your first time at the games, you may not have seen it before.
Yeah, I think for the athletes coming up on this split snatch, if they haven't practiced splitting with the dumbbell, there's a coordination factor. Like, it's not just going to be go, push, and all physiological engine. They're going to have to think what foot goes forward as what dumbbells in the hand, how am I going to stabilize this, and also remembering to stand completely up with the dumbbell before they lower it.
Well, and here's the thing you mentioned, thinking about it in coordination. You have to lift with the arm that's opposite of the foot that goes forward. So if you're lifting with your right arm, your left foot has to go forward. That's enough to mess some people up.
Think how hard that was to explain. Now tell someone to go and do that on the fly. And I think what you're going to see here with these athletes is that you're going to see a separation between those that are just good at doing CrossFit and the athletic ones that have experience with these multiple position movements.
Catherine Davis-Daughter, Carrie Pierce, and Tia Toomey are on the lead pace. Kristen Holtz is a handful of reps back, as every athlete is done with the 100 double unders, except for Amanda Barnhart. Now, Barnhart may have an issue with one of her ankles. I was told that she may have injured it a little bit during Mary, so we'll have to keep an eye on her and how that affects her during this event. Tia Toomey right now is your leader, 5 rounds.
Interesting strategy from Toomey, as she is doing a clean and jerk. It must be just get the barbell to overhead anyway, or the dumbbell to overhead anyway. That's a little bit slower. It's going to take her a little bit more time, but possibly less fatiguing.
There are 22
works out over time.
Total repetitions in each round, and Tia Toomey is done first. Back to the chalk. and she will begin her second of 5 rounds. So 22 scored repetition, 1 for the pegboard. You get credit for 1 when you finish the double unders, and then 10 each for the dumbbell movements. Catherine David's on her now, moving back to the wall as she tries to vault herself up the leaderboard. Remember, there are a lot of points on the line here, and the gap between each finish is 10.
And this is exactly what I wanted to see from Tia-Clair Toomey coming into this event. She was losing some momentum. She didn't have any bad events. She just wasn't having those standout dominating events. So Tia-Clair Toomey, from what she finishing the dumbbell, racing to the pegboard, wasting no time. This is exactly what she needs to do to reestablish herself with these top 10 ladies.
Tia Toomey and Carrie Pierce are under their second of 5 rounds. And now Jamie Green picking up the jump rope as well.
I think the one thing we are overlooking is the 100 double unders in the middle. For a couple of rounds, 2 to 3 rounds, it really isn't that bad. In fact, going unbroken isn't the worst thing. But if you remember the open event last year, that had 100 double unders in between these high-skilled movements. They had dumbbell snatches, muscle-ups, bar muscle-ups, and overhead squats. It's by the 3rd round and 4th round, they got so much harder and so much more fatiguing. So I'll be curious to see how they handle rounds 3 and 4 moving into 5.
Tia Toomey done with her second set of 100 double unders, and now on to the dumbbell for 10 split snatches from the hang position. What do you like about what you're seeing from Tia Toomey, Josh?
So right now, very efficient. She started with that snatch, and what she might do is go to the snatch until she gets a little fatigued. When she starts feeling that fatigue, switch to the clean and jerk that she did last time. Or maybe she got through that first round and she's like, I got this, and she's doing the faster but more difficult snatch.
It's hang dumbbell snatches, then it's 10 hang dumbbell clean and jerks. And again, you have to put the opposite leg forward from the arm that you're using to lift. Catherine Davis-Daughter's on the left. She currently sits in 3rd in this heat, and it's Carrie Pierce who is in 2nd. But Tia Toomey, once she hits 44 reps, she'll be done with 2 rounds, and she'll move back for round number 3.
And as you guys watch, you'll see a couple different styles. One, just the difference between the snatch and the clean and jerk, obviously. But you also see kind of a swing or a kettlebell style, which again takes longer, but it's a little less taxing on the heart rate and the shoulder. And then you'll see more of an Olympic pull where the dumbbell stays closer to the body and goes straight up. That takes a little bit more energy, but it's faster. So it's all going to be about what's the best strategy for pace and getting through this workout. If you go too hard out of the gate, you'll find yourself taking breaks later on in the workout, which will obviously hurt you.
Tia Toomey back for pegboard climb number 3 of 5. Terry Helgadottir on the right of your screen has been falling off the pace. He was struggling